He ruled the criminal underworld with an iron fist. But when his ex-girlfriend walked onto his private jet with 3 children, he fainted. Because they all had his face. Kang Ji-won abandoned her when she was pregnant, not knowing she carried triplets. Now she's returned as a powerful businesswoman, and the 3 5-year-old boys have the one thing he can't deny: his family's birthmark. The same mark that proves his bloodline. The same mark that could destroy everything he's built. She didn't come back for love. She came back for something far more dangerous. And when his fiancée sees those children, this plane is about to become a battlefield at 30,000 feet. What happens next? You've never seen a mafia story like this. Hit subscribe. We're telling stories you won't find anywhere else. Let's begin. The champagne tasted like victory. Kang Ji-won didn't drink often. Control was currency in his world, and he spent it carefully. But today was different. Today, he was 30,000 feet above the chaos he ruled, flying toward a future he'd designed with surgical precision. His fiancée, Isabella Chen, sat across from him in the private jet's cream leather seats, her diamond engagement ring catching the afternoon light like a small contained star. She was perfect. Daughter of a shipping magnate. Educated in Switzerland. Beautiful in the calculated way that powerful men appreciated. Polished, poised, never a hair out of place. Their marriage would unite 2 empires. His underground kingdom of shadows and influence would merge with her family's legitimate billions. It was strategy. It was smart. It was completely loveless. And they both knew it. To us, Isabella said, raising her glass. Her smile was practiced. Professional. To the merger. She didn't say to love. She never did. Ji-won's lips curved into something that might have looked like a smile to anyone who didn't know him. But his second-in-command, Marcus, standing near the jet's entrance, saw the truth. He'd known Ji-won since they were teenagers, clawing their way up through Seoul's underworld. He knew that look. Ji-won was building a cage and calling it a crown. To the merger, Ji-won echoed, his voice low and smooth as black silk. The jet hummed beneath them, a mechanical heartbeat carrying them forward. Outside the windows, clouds stretched endlessly. White, pure, untouched. Nothing like the world Ji-won inhabited. His empire was built on things people didn't want to see. The money that moved through dark channels. The debts that were always paid. The whispers that made powerful men step aside when he entered a room. He was 32 years old and owned half the criminal infrastructure on the West Coast. Judges, politicians, corporation heads, they all owed him something. Fear, money, silence. But he'd paid for it. He'd paid with every soft part of himself until there was nothing left but the armor, or so he thought. The pilot's voice crackled through the cabin speaker. Mr. Kang, we have a last-minute boarding request. VIP passenger with 3 minors. Your assistant approved it. Ji-won's jaw tightened. He didn't like surprises. Surprises got people killed. Who? His voice dropped to that dangerous quiet, the tone that made grown men confess to things they hadn't even done yet. A Ms. Amara Okafor. She's... The name hit him like a bullet he didn't see coming. Amara. His hand froze halfway to his glass. The champagne trembled, tiny ripples disturbing its golden surface. 5 years. He hadn't heard that name in 5 years. Ji-won? Isabella's perfectly shaped eyebrows drew together. Do you know her? He didn't answer. Couldn't. Because the cabin door was opening, and the past he'd buried was walking through it. She appeared like a vision, like something his mind had conjured from guilt and memory. But she was real. Devastatingly. Impossibly real. Amara Okafor. She'd changed. God, she'd changed. Gone was the bright-eyed graduate student he'd met at a university charity gala. The woman who'd laughed at his dark jokes and seen past the reputation to something he'd forgotten existed inside himself. This woman wore a tailored black suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. Her natural hair was styled in an elegant crown of locks wrapped into an intricate updo. Diamond studs glinted at her ears. She moved with the confidence of someone who'd learned to navigate rooms full of sharks and come out unbitten. She was stunning. She was terrifying. And she wasn't alone. Behind her, 3 small boys filed into the cabin, each holding the hand of a professional nanny. They were maybe 5 years old, dressed in matching navy suits that made them look like tiny businessmen. Their skin was a beautiful brown, a shade lighter than their mother's deep mahogany, but their faces, Ji-won's vision tunneled. Their faces were his, not similar, not reminiscent, identical. The same sharp jawline that would break hearts when they grew up. The same intense dark eyes that had stared back at him from mirrors his entire life. The same way of tilting their heads when they looked at something new, curious and cautious at once. And there, on the smallest one's neck, just visible above his collar. No. The birthmark. A small, distinctive mark shaped like a scattered constellation. The Kang family birthmark. The genetic signature that had appeared on every male heir for 4 generations. Ji-won had it. His father had it. His grandfather had it. And now, 3 small boys he'd never met had it. The cabin tilted. Or maybe he did. Ji-won? Isabella's voice came from very far away. He tried to breathe, couldn't. His chest was caving in, his lungs forgetting their function. Math did itself in his head without permission. 5 years since he'd walked away. 5-year-old children. 9 months of pregnancy. Oh God. Ji-won. Marcus moved toward him, but it was too late. The crime lord who'd stared down federal prosecutors and rival syndicate heads without flinching, the man who'd never shown weakness in 15 years of building his empire. He collapsed. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Amara's face. Her expression wasn't shocked, wasn't sympathetic. It was something far colder. It was satisfaction. She'd wanted him to see, wanted him to know, wanted him to break. And as consciousness slipped away, Ji-won realized with crystal clarity. She'd just declared war, and he'd already lost the first battle. Ji-won woke to the smell of expensive leather and the distant hum of jet engines. His head throbbed. His chest felt like someone had reached inside and rearranged his organs. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he remembered. The children. His eyes snapped open. He was lying on the jet's sofa in the back cabin, Marcus hovering over him with a glass of water and an expression that managed to be both concerned and deeply, professionally neutral. Boss. Marcus's voice was carefully measured. You've been out for 4 minutes. Blood pressure dropped. You need to... Where is she? Ji-won's voice came out raw. Forward cabin. With the children and the nanny. Isabella moved to the conference section. She's making calls. Marcus paused. She's not happy. Ji-won sat up too fast. The cabin swam, then steadied. I don't care about Isabella right now. Boss? I don't. He stood, his legs unsteady but functional. Those children, Marcus. I know. They have the... I know. Marcus's face was grim. I saw it. The youngest one. The birthmark. They stared at each other. Marcus had been there 5 years ago when Ji-won had come back from that last night with Amara, had watched him drink himself into oblivion, and then systematically erase her from his life. Cut contact. Blocked numbers. Threw himself into the family business until there was nothing left but the empire and the emptiness. Ji-won had told himself it was necessary. He was being groomed to take over his father's criminal network. There was no room for soft things. No space for a woman who made him want to be someone different. Someone better. So he'd walked away. He'd never asked if there would be consequences. I need to talk to her. Ji-won's voice was steadier now, the armor sliding back into place. Alone. I'll handle Isabella. He straightened his shirt, ran a hand through his dark hair. When he looked at Marcus again, he was almost himself. Almost the crime lord. Almost the man who didn't break. Almost. Marcus stepped aside. Ji-won walked through the jet like a man approaching his own execution. Each step felt too heavy, too loud. The distance between cabins was maybe 20 feet. It felt like 20 miles. She was sitting in one of the window seats, looking out at the clouds with an expression he couldn't read. The 3 boys were scattered around the cabin, one watching a tablet with headphones on, one drawing in a notebook, one simply staring at nothing with those eyes that were mirrors of Ji-won's own. The nanny, a middle-aged Filipino woman with kind eyes and a professional demeanor, stood as Ji-won entered. She glanced at Amara, who gave a small nod. Take them to the back lounge. Amara said softly. Put on the movie, the one with the dragons. Yes, Ms. Okafor. The nanny efficiently gathered the boys. They went without complaint, well-trained or perhaps just accustomed to their mother's instructions being followed. As the smallest one passed Jiwon, he looked up. Their eyes met. Jiwon's heart stopped for the second time that day. The boy smiled. Small. Tentative. Then he was gone, following his brothers and the nanny through to the aft cabin. The door closed with a quiet click, and suddenly, there was nothing between Jiwon and the woman he'd destroyed. Amara. His voice cracked on her name. She turned to look at him then. Her face was beautiful and terrible. There were no tears, no anger in her expression, just a cold, crystalline calm that was somehow worse than rage. Jiwon. She said his name like it was a word in a foreign language she'd learned but didn't particularly like. Sit down before you faint again. I don't feel like explaining to the FAA why a mafia boss died on my chartered flight. Your chartered... He stared. This is your plane? I bought the seat allotments. Same thing. She gestured to the chair across from her. Sit. He sat. Not because she ordered it, but because his legs weren't sure they'd hold him much longer. They looked at each other across 3 feet of cabin space and 5 years of silence. They're mine. It wasn't a question. No. Her voice was soft, deadly. They're mine. I carried them. I birthed them. I raised them. I paid for their doctors, their clothes, their education. I held them when they were sick. I taught them to walk, to talk, to be good humans despite having your DNA. Each word was a knife, precise and purposeful. You walked away, Jiwon. You told me you couldn't do this. She waved a hand between them. Because you had responsibilities, an empire to inherit, a world that wouldn't understand. You said I deserved better than what you could give me. I did. You lied. Her voice didn't rise. That was worse. You were a coward. You loved me and you couldn't handle it. So you ran. Sent me one text message. I'm sorry. This is over. Don't contact me again. Then you blocked my number. Jiwon remembered that night. Remembered typing those words with shaking hands. Remembered pressing send and then immediately throwing his phone across the room. I tried to tell you. Her voice was still so quiet, so controlled. I tried for 3 weeks, called from different numbers, sent emails. I even showed up at your office building. Your security threw me out. What? His blood went cold. Oh, you didn't know? She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Your father's men. They told me, Mr. Kang had made himself clear. I was no longer welcome in his life. If I persisted, there would be consequences. Jiwon's hands clenched into fists. My father. I was 2 months pregnant, Jiwon. Standing in the rain outside your building, and your father's men threatened me. He couldn't breathe again. So I left, Amara continued, her voice like glass. Went back to Nigeria, had the babies there. My family helped, and I built something. Started with my father's contacts in shipping, turned it into a tech logistics company. 5 years later, Okafor International has contracts in 40 countries and a valuation of $800 million. She leaned forward slightly. I didn't need you then. I don't need you now. We're on this plane because my company is finalizing a deal in Los Angeles, and this was the most direct route from Lagos. The fact that you happen to be here, she shrugged, is God's sense of humor. Jiwon stared at her. At this woman who'd loved him once, and who'd become something magnificent and fierce without him. The boys, he managed. Their names. Keon, Cairo, and Kai. Her expression softened for the first time, but only when speaking of them. They're smart, kind. They ask about their father sometimes. I tell them he wasn't ready to be a parent. Which is true. I didn't know. Would it have mattered? She tilted her head. If you'd known, would you have stayed? Or would you have done what powerful men always do? Thrown money at the problem and disappeared anyway. He wanted to say he would have stayed. Wanted to believe it. But he'd walked away when he loved her. Would a pregnancy have made him braver? I don't know, he said finally. The honesty hurt. At least you're not lying now. She stood. I'm going to check on my sons. You're going to go back to your fiancée. Yes, the nanny told me about her. Congratulations. And we're going to forget this conversation happened. Amara, they have your birthmark. She said it calmly. All 3 of them. I noticed it when they were born. Did my research. Learned what it meant. So yes, anyone who knows your family will know they're yours. But that's not my problem anymore, Jiwon. That's yours. She walked past him. Her perfume, something warm and expensive, trailing behind her. At the cabin door, she paused. For what it's worth, she said without turning around. I'm glad I loved you once. Because they're the best thing that ever happened to me. The only good thing that came from us. Then she was gone. Jiwon sat alone in the cabin, surrounded by clouds and the wreckage of the life he thought he'd built so carefully. And for the first time in 15 years, the crime lord put his face in his hands and let himself feel everything he'd been running from. Isabella found him there 20 minutes later. Jiwon had pulled himself together by then, washed his face in the jet's bathroom, straightened his clothes, rebuilt the mask. But she knew. She'd always known. That was part of why his father had chosen her. Isabella Chen understood that business was business, and feelings were complications to be managed. So, she stood in the doorway, arms crossed. We need to talk. Yes, those children are yours. It wasn't a question, but he answered anyway. Yes, all 3 of them. Triplets. I didn't know. Clearly. Isabella sat down across from where Amara had been minutes before. The contrast was stunning. Where Amara had been fire and fury barely contained, Isabella was ice. Calculated. This is problematic. I know. Your father will... I know. Jiwon's voice was sharper than intended. Isabella studied him with those clever eyes that missed nothing. You loved her. Past tense. Always past tense with Isabella. Everything was historical data to be analyzed. That's irrelevant. No, it's not. Isabella leaned back. Because if you'd just gotten some girl pregnant and walked away, that's manageable. A scandal, but manageable. Money solves those problems. But you loved her, and now she's back, and there are 3 children with your family's birthmark walking around. That's not a scandal, Jiwon. That's a liability. Every word was true. Jiwon hated that. What do you want to do? He asked it genuinely. About us. Oh, we're still getting married. Isabella's smile was thin. Our families have contracts, expectations. The merger is too important. But we need to control this narrative before it controls us. Control it how? That depends. She tilted her head. What do you want, really? It was the first time she'd asked him what he wanted in the 6 months they'd been engaged. Jiwon looked out the window at the endless sky. What did he want? He wanted to rewind 5 years and not be a coward. He wanted to have been there when Amara found out she was pregnant. He wanted to have seen his sons born. He wanted to have been the father they deserved instead of the ghost they asked about. He wanted impossible things. I want them to be safe, he said finally. All of them. Her and the boys. Safe from what? From my world. He looked at Isabella. You know what I am, what my family is. The people who'd use children as leverage. The enemies who'd see 3 small boys as targets. Understanding dawned in Isabella's eyes. You're going to protect them. Yes, even though she clearly wants nothing to do with you. Especially because of that. Jiwon's voice was steel now. She built a life without me. She's successful, powerful, everything she would have been with or without me. But my world doesn't care about that. The moment someone figures out those boys are mine, they become weapons someone will try to use. Isabella was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Not softer, but more genuine. You know this complicates everything. I know. Your father will demand you cut ties. Publicly deny them. I know. And you're not going to do that. It wasn't a question. No, Jiwon said. I'm not. Isabella stood, smoothed her skirt. Then we're going to need a strategy. Because Kang Dae-hyun doesn't accept complications. He eliminates them. Jiwon's father. The current Dawn. The man who'd built the empire Jiwan was supposed to inherit. The man who'd threatened a pregnant woman in the rain 5 years ago. I'll handle my father. Will you? Isabella moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Jiwan, I actually respect you more now than I did an hour ago. You've always been powerful, but power without principle is just tyranny. Maybe fatherhood will make you something more interesting than your father ever was. She left him with that. Jiwan sat alone again, his mind racing through scenarios and consequences. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Your father knows. He's calling a family meeting when we land. All senior members. He's not happy. Of course he knew. Kang Daehyun had eyes everywhere. Probably had someone on this jet staff on payroll. Information was currency in their world. Another buzz. This one from a number he didn't recognize. Stop staring at the cabin door. I'm not going to talk to you again. Despite everything, Jiwan almost smiled. She'd noticed him looking. Of course she had. Amara had always seen him more clearly than he saw himself. He typed back, I understand, but we need to discuss security. For them. The reply came fast. I have security. Professional team. Former Secret Service. We're fine. My world is different from anything your team has handled. Your world doesn't get to touch my sons. That's not your choice anymore. The moment I saw them, the moment anyone else in my life saw them, this changed. They're in danger whether you acknowledge it or not. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. If you're threatening me, I'm protecting you. There's a difference. Please. Let me help. No response. The 3 dots were gone. Jiwan stood, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the forward cabin. Toward the most important negotiation of his life. One that had nothing to do with business, and everything to do with 3 small boys who carried his face, his blood, and his birthmark. 3 small boys he'd never met but would die protecting. Because that's what fathers did. Even ones who'd never earned the title. The jet continued its path through the sky, carrying them all toward Los Angeles, toward consequences, toward a future none of them had planned. And in the back lounge, 3 5-year-old boys watched dragons on a screen, completely unaware that their existence had just rewritten the rules of an entire criminal empire. The plane descended through layers of clouds like a stone dropping through water. Jiwan stood outside the lounge door for 3 full minutes before knocking. Through the small window he could see them. Keon, Cairo, and Kai. Their names now burned into his memory like brands. They were still watching their movie, the nanny sitting nearby with a book. But Amara was there too now, sitting between 2 of the boys, one small head resting against her shoulder. She looked up as if sensing him. Their eyes met through the glass. She didn't smile, didn't frown, just looked at him with an expression that said everything and nothing at once. You have no right to be here. But you are. So what now? He knocked softly. The nanny opened the door. Mr. Kang. Her voice was professionally neutral, but her eyes held a warning. She'd seen him collapse earlier, seen the chaos he'd brought into her employer's carefully ordered world. I'd like to speak with Ms. Okafor, briefly. I don't think... It's fine, Marie. Amara's voice came from inside. She gently moved the sleeping child, Kai, the smallest one, off her shoulder and stood. 5 minutes. Outside. She stepped into the corridor, pulling the door closed behind her. They stood in the narrow space between cabins, close enough that Jiwan could smell her perfume again, close enough to see the tiny details he'd memorized 5 years ago and had tried so hard to forget. The small scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood fall. The way her eyes had flecks of amber in the deep brown. The curve of her mouth that he'd once kissed until they both forgot their own names. You said security. She crossed her arms. Make it quick. We're landing in 40 minutes. My father knows. He watched her process that, watched the slight tightening around her eyes, the way her shoulders stiffened almost imperceptibly. How? He has people everywhere. On this plane, probably. Definitely at the airport we're landing at. By the time we touch down, every senior member of my family's organization will know that Kang Ji-won's ex-girlfriend appeared with 3 children who have the family birthmark. So what? Her voice was steady, but he could hear the edge underneath. I don't care what your family knows. We're in America. You don't own this country. No, but we own enough of it. Jiwon kept his voice low. Amara, I need you to understand something. My father, Kang Dae-hyun, he didn't build our empire by being merciful or sentimental. When I told him about you 5 years ago, do you know what he said? She waited. He said love is a weakness, that soft things get exploited, that if I wanted to lead our family, I needed to eliminate anything that could be used against me. Jiwon's jaw clenched. I thought he was right. I thought walking away from you was strength. And now? Now I know he was the one who sent his men to threaten you when you tried to contact me. Now I know he sees problems as things to be erased. And now, 3 children exist who could be used to control me, or, if my father decides they're more liability than asset, eliminated to prevent that control. The color drained from Amara's face. You think your father would hurt children? I think my father has done worse things than I've ever told you about. And I think he views family legacy as more important than individual lives. Jiwon stepped closer. I need to get you and the boys somewhere safe. Today. Now. Before we land. I have a hotel reservation. The Peninsula Beverly Hills. 5-star security. Will be... That's the first place he'll look. He probably already has people in the hotel. In the restaurant. In the parking garage. Jiwon pulled out his phone. I have a property in Malibu. Cliffside Estate. Private security that answers only to me, not my father. No one outside my most trusted circle knows about it. Let me take you there. Absolutely not. Amara's voice was sharp. I'm not going anywhere alone with you. I don't know you anymore, Jiwon. For all I know, this is manipulation, a way to control the situation. Then bring your security team. Bring Marie. Bring anyone you trust. But please, his voice cracked slightly. Please don't go to that hotel. Don't make yourself an easy target. Why do you even care? The question came out raw. All her composure stripped away for just a moment. You walked away. You chose this life over us. Over what we could have been. Why does it matter now? Because I never stopped loving you. Because seeing them is like being given back something I didn't know I'd lost. Because the thought of anything happening to you or those boys makes me want to burn down everything I've ever built. He didn't say any of that. Because they're innocent, he said instead. Whatever happened between us, whatever mistakes I made, they didn't choose this. They didn't ask to be born into my world. And I won't let my father's sins touch them. Amara studied his face for a long moment. Whatever she saw there must have convinced her, because her shoulders dropped slightly. One night, we go to your property, I assess the security, and if it's not satisfactory, we leave. Understood? Understood. And you stay away from my sons. You don't get to suddenly be their father because it's convenient, or because you feel guilty. They have a life, a routine, a sense of safety. I won't let you disrupt that. Each word was a knife, but he deserved every cut. Agreed. She turned to go back into the lounge, then paused. Ji-won? Yes? If this is a game, if you're playing some angle I don't see, I will destroy you. Not physically. I'm not like you. But I have resources now. Connections. Lawyers who could tie your empire up in federal investigations for decades. Don't underestimate what a motivated mother can do. He believed her. I would never underestimate you again. She nodded once and disappeared back into the lounge. Jiwon stood in the empty corridor, his heart pounding. He'd just committed to protecting them, which meant he'd just committed to war with his own father. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Boss. Your father's people are at LAX. 6 cars, full security detail. He's not asking you to the meeting. He's demanding it. Jiwon typed back. Change of plans. Private hangar. Santa Monica Airport. Alert the Malibu property. We're coming in with guests. Full lockdown protocol. Boss, if you're doing what I think you're doing, I am. Your father will see this as betrayal. Let him. Jiwon walked back toward the main cabin where Isabella was on her laptop, probably already managing the fallout from this disaster. She looked up as he approached. We're not going to LAX, he said. I know. I already heard Marcus making calls. She closed her laptop. You're really doing this. I'm really doing this. Your father will disinherit you. Possibly worse. I know. Isabella stood, walked over to him, and did something completely unexpected. She touched his arm. Gently. Almost kindly. My father told me once that the measure of a man isn't what he does when the world is watching. It's what he does when no one will ever know. When the only judge is his own conscience. Your father sounds wise. He was. Before your father had him killed. The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Ji-won stared at her. What? Oh, you didn't know. Isabella's smile was sad. 10 years ago, my father was going to testify against your family's organization. He had evidence. Documents. Recordings. Then he had a sudden heart attack at 52. Perfectly healthy man. Dead in his sleep. Isabella. I know what your family is, Ji-won. I've always known. That's why I agreed to this marriage. To get close. To understand. Maybe to find proof someday. She picked up her purse. But this thing you're doing now? Protecting that woman and those children? It's the first truly decent thing I've seen anyone in your family do in a decade. You could have told me. About your father. Would it have changed anything? You were always going to inherit the empire. You were always going to be your father's son. She headed toward the exit. But maybe now you're becoming something else. Something better. Don't waste it. The plane touched down at Santa Monica Airport 20 minutes later. The private hangar Marcus had arranged was empty except for 3 black SUVs with tinted windows. Ji-won's personal security team, men he'd recruited himself, men who'd die before betraying him, stood ready. Amara emerged from the plane carrying Kai, who was still sleeping. The other 2 boys held Marie's hands, looking around with wide, curious eyes. Keon, the oldest by 2 minutes according to the nanny's whispered information, pointed at the cars. Mommy, are those ours? Just for today, baby. Amara's voice was gentle. An adventure. Like a movie. Something like that. Ji-won watched from a distance as his security team helped load their luggage. He'd ordered them to be respectful, professional, invisible. These weren't prisoners. They were guests. Protected guests. Marcus appeared at his elbow. The Malibu property is ready. I've pulled everyone we trust. 12 men. All vetted personally by me. No connection to your father's network. Good. Boss, your phone's been blowing up. Your father's called 16 times. Your uncle. Your cousins. Everyone wants to know where you are. Let them wonder. And Isabella? Ji-won watched as Isabella got into a separate car. The one that would take her to her family's estate in Pasadena. She'd made it clear. She'd cover for him for now. But she wasn't getting directly involved. Smart woman. She's handling her part. Which is? Buying us time. One of the SUVs pulled up in front of them. The door opened and Amara looked out. Her expression was unreadable. Are you coming or just staring? Ji-won got in. The drive to Malibu took 40 minutes. 40 minutes of excruciating silence broken only by the boys' occasional questions and observations. They were smart kids. Articulate. Keon asked about the ocean when they glimpsed it through the hills. Cairo wondered if there would be a pool. Kai, the quiet one, just looked out the window with those eyes that were carbon copies of Ji-won's own. The Malibu estate sat on 3 acres of clifftop property with panoramic ocean views. Ji-won had bought it 2 years ago as a retreat. Somewhere his father didn't know about. Somewhere the empire couldn't reach. Now it was becoming a fortress. Security met them at the gate. The house itself was modern glass and stone. All clean lines and open space. The boy's eyes went wide. Whoa, Cairo breathed. It's like Iron Man's house. Despite everything, Ji-won almost smiled. Amara got out slowly, studying everything with a critical eye. She noticed the cameras, the security checkpoints, the way Ji-won's men positioned themselves at strategic points. She walked to the edge of the property where a glass barrier protected the cliff edge, looking out at the Pacific Ocean stretching endlessly toward the horizon. It's beautiful, she said when Ji-won approached. And terrifying. That much security for what? A family visit? That much security for my father. Tell me about him. She didn't look at him. Not the crime lord. The man. Your father. Jiwon leaned against the railing, careful to keep distance between them. Kang Daehyun came from nothing. His father was a street enforcer in Seoul. His mother died when he was 8. He learned early that power was the only currency that mattered. By 20, he'd taken over his father's territory. By 30, he'd expanded to 3 countries. By 40, he owned legitimate businesses that made more money than most corporations. And you? I'm the heir. The crown prince of something I never asked for. Jiwon's voice was hollow. He trained me from childhood. Strategy, negotiation. How to read people. How to use fear without losing control. How to build an empire on other people's weakness. Did he train you how to love? The question hit him like a physical blow. No, he said quietly. He trained me that love was the greatest weakness of all. And yet here you are. Amara finally looked at him. Risking everything for 3 children you just met and a woman who hates you. Do you? Hate me? She was quiet for so long he thought she wouldn't answer. When she did, her voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know what I feel anymore. 5 years ago, I loved you so much it physically hurt. Then you left. And I had to learn to live with that pain until it became part of me. Then the boys came. And they saved me. Gave me purpose. Made me stronger than I ever thought I could be. She turned to face him fully. So no, I don't hate you. I don't feel anything toward you at all. You're just a biological fact. A genetic contributor. The boys deserve to know where they came from. But that doesn't mean you get to be their father. I understand. Do you? Her eyes flashed. Do you understand what it's like to be pregnant and alone? To give birth to 3 babies by yourself? Because the man you loved chose power over you? To watch them grow and see his face every single day in theirs? No. Jiwon's voice broke. I don't. And I can't fix that. I can't go back. All I can do is make sure that from this moment forward, they're safe. That you're safe. Why? The question was anguished. Why now? Why not 5 years ago when I needed you? Because 5 years ago, I was a coward. I thought strength meant having no weaknesses. I thought love made you vulnerable. He looked out at the ocean. I was wrong. About everything. Before Amara could respond, Marie appeared at the glass door. Ms. Okafor? The boys are asking for you. They want to see their rooms. Amara wiped her eyes quickly. When had she started crying? And nodded. I'm coming. She walked away without another word to Jiwon. He stood alone on the cliff edge as the sun began to set over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of amber and blood. His phone buzzed again. This time he answered. Father. Kang Daehyun's voice was cold as winter. Where are you? Handling a personal matter. Personal? You embarrass me in front of the entire organization. You disappear. You ignore my calls. This is not how the heir to our empire behaves. The empire can wait. Silence. Then, I see. The woman and the bastards. Jiwon's hand clenched around the phone so hard the screen cracked. They are my children. Your grandsons. And you will not call them that again. You were always too soft, Jiwon. I thought I'd trained it out of you. Clearly, I was mistaken. Kang Daehyun's voice dropped to something darker. You have 24 hours to bring yourself to the compound, alone. We will discuss your situation and decide on appropriate action. And if I refuse, then you are no longer my son, no longer heir. You will be removed from the organization with all the ceremony such an occasion requires, which meant a bullet, or worse. I'll be there, Jiwon said, but they stay protected, non-negotiable. Everything is negotiable, boy. You'll learn that, one way or another. The line went dead. Jiwon stood there as darkness fell over the ocean, knowing that tomorrow he would walk into his father's compound and potentially never walk out. But tonight, 3 small boys would sleep safely in a house by the sea, and somehow, that felt like the most important thing he'd ever done. The house was too quiet. It was past midnight, and Jiwon sat in the study overlooking the ocean, nursing a glass of whiskey he hadn't actually drunk. His mind kept running scenarios, calculating odds, preparing for tomorrow's meeting with his father like it was a military operation. because that's what it was. He'd called his lawyer, updated his will, made sure that if something happened to him, certain accounts would transfer to Amara. Not because she needed the money, she'd made that abundantly clear, but because his father couldn't be allowed to control everything if Jiwon was gone. Marcus had tried to talk him out of going alone. "Boss, it's a trap. You know it's a trap." "Of course it's a trap. But if I don't go, he'll come here. And I won't risk that." Now Marcus was sleeping in the guest house with the other security team members, rotating watches through the night. The house itself was dark except for Jiwon's study, and a light flickered on upstairs. Jiwon stood, moving quietly through the house. His hand instinctively went to the gun he kept in his shoulder holster. Old habits. Even in his own safe house, he was always armed. The light was coming from one of the children's bedrooms. He approached carefully, stopping at the doorway. Inside, Amara sat on the edge of a small bed where Kai, the youngest, the quiet one, lay staring at the ceiling. She was stroking his hair, humming something soft and melodic. A Nigerian lullaby, maybe. Something from her childhood. "Can't sleep, baby?" Her voice was so gentle it physically hurt Jiwon to hear it. "I had a dream." Kai's voice was small, uncertain. "About the man on the plane, the one who looked at us." Jiwon's breath caught. "What about him?" Amara kept her voice calm, but Jiwon could see her back stiffen. He was sad. Really, really sad. Like when Keon broke his favorite toy, but bigger. Grown-up sad. "Why do you think he was sad?" "I don't know." Kai rolled over to look at his mother. "Mommy, do you know him?" Amara was quiet for a long moment. "I did. Once. A long time ago." "Were you friends?" "Something like that." "Can we be friends with him too?" "Oh, baby." Amara's voice cracked slightly. "It's complicated. Is he the reason we never had a daddy? Auntie Grace's kids have a daddy who takes them to soccer. Keon wants to play soccer." Jiwon closed his eyes. The casual innocence of the question was devastating. "Some families are different," Amara said carefully. "Some kids have 2 parents. Some have 1. Some have grandparents or aunts or uncles raising them. What matters is being loved. And you 3 are so loved. But don't you get tired, Mommy? Taking care of 3 of us all by yourself? Never. You 3 are the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though we're a lot of work. Especially because you're a lot of work." She kissed his forehead. "Now sleep. Tomorrow we're going to explore this big house and maybe swim in that fancy pool. Deal?" "Deal." Amara stood, tucking the blanket around Kai more securely. She turned toward the door and froze when she saw Jiwon standing there in the shadows. Their eyes met. He expected anger. Accusations of eavesdropping. Instead, she just looked tired. So incredibly tired. She walked past him into the hallway, pulling the door mostly closed. "How much did you hear?" "Enough." "Then you know. They ask about you. Not you specifically. They don't know you're their father. But they ask about the concept, the missing piece in their lives." She leaned against the wall. "I've tried to be enough. Mother and father both. But sometimes I see Keon watching other kids with their dads at school pickup, and I can see him wondering what he did wrong to not have that. He didn't do anything wrong. I know that. You know that. But try explaining that to a 5-year-old who sees his friends getting picked up for father-son baseball games while he waits for his mom." She looked at him. "This is why I didn't want to find you. Didn't want you in their lives. Because it's easier to miss something you never had than to have it and lose it. You think I'll leave again. Won't you?" Her voice was sharp. "When this crisis with your father is over, when we're no longer convenient victims for you to save, what then? You'll go back to your empire and your fiancée and your life. And my boys will have met their father and lost him. Again. That's not, isn't it? You said yourself you're meeting with your father tomorrow. You're walking into something dangerous. What if you don't come back? What do I tell them then?" Her voice rose slightly. "What do I tell 3 small boys who are just beginning to understand that the sad man from the airplane is their father, and now he's gone? How do I protect them from that grief?" "Amara, no. She held up a hand. You don't get to make promises you can't keep. Not to me, and definitely not to them. So here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow, you're going to go deal with your father. And we're going to stay here with your security team. And when it's safe, when your father is handled or neutralized or whatever it is criminals do to each other, we're leaving. Back to Nigeria. Back to our life. What if I want to be part of that life? The question hung between them like a living thing. Amara's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. You gave up that right 5 years ago when you sent that text message and blocked my number. You don't get to decide you want to be a father now because it's convenient or because you feel guilty. It's not guilt. Jiwon stepped closer. When I saw them on that plane, when I saw Kai's birthmark and realized what it meant, it wasn't guilt I felt. It was recognition. Like I'd been missing 3 pieces of myself and didn't know it until they were standing right in front of me. That's biology, DNA, not fatherhood. Then teach me. His voice was raw. Teach me how to be what they need. I know I don't deserve the chance. I know I threw away any right to ask, but they deserve better than a ghost. They deserve someone who won't break their hearts. Amara wiped her eyes angrily. Can you promise me that? Can you stand here and swear that you won't let your empire, your father, your duty destroy what we'd build? Because I can't watch you break them the way you broke me. Jiwon opened his mouth to answer, but no sound came out. Because she was right. He couldn't promise that. His world was violence and consequences. His father was a monster who eliminated obstacles. Even if Jiwon survived tomorrow, even if he somehow took control of the organization from Kang De-hyun, would his life ever be safe enough for children? That's what I thought, Amara said softly. You can't promise, so don't. Don't make them love you if you can't stay. She walked away, disappearing into the room where the other 2 boys slept. Jiwon stood alone in the hallway of his safe house, surrounded by security and weapons and all the tools of his empire. And he'd never felt more powerless in his life. The next morning came too quickly. Jiwon woke at dawn. He'd barely slept, just grabbed 3 hours on the study couch. When he emerged, the house was already alive with activity. The boys were eating breakfast in the kitchen, Marie supervising while Amara stood by the windows looking out at the ocean. Kian saw him first. Mom, the man from the plane is here. All 3 boys turned to stare. Jiwon felt frozen under their gaze. 3 pairs of eyes that were mirrors of his own, studying him with innocent curiosity. I know, baby, Amara said calmly. He's a friend. He's letting us stay here for a bit. Is this his house? Cairo asked. It's really cool. Thank you, Jiwon managed. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. Do you have a pool? Kian again, bouncing slightly with excitement. Mom said there might be a pool. I do. It's outside on the west terrace. Can we swim later? All 3 boys looked at Amara with identical pleading expressions. She smiled, the first real smile Jiwon had seen from her since she walked onto that plane. We'll see. Maybe after Mr. Kang. Jiwon, he interrupted. Just Jiwon is fine. After Jiwon gets back from his meeting. Where are you going? Kai asked quietly. The smallest one. Always watching, always listening. To see my father, Jiwon said honestly. Is he nice? The question was so innocent it physically hurt. He's complicated, Jiwon settled on. Our mommy's not complicated, Kian announced. She's the best. She makes us laugh and helps with homework and reads 3 different bedtime stories even when she's tired. She sounds amazing, Jiwon said, looking at Amara. You're very lucky. We know, Cairo said seriously. We tell her all the time. Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway. Boss, we need to leave in 15 if you're going to make the meeting. Jiwon nodded. He started to leave, then turned back. Amara, can I speak with you? Privately. She hesitated, then followed him into the study. He closed the door behind them. If something happens, don't. Listen to me. He grabbed her hands. She tried to pull away, but he held on. If something happens, Marcus has instructions. This house transfers to you. There are accounts set up in the boys' names. Trusts that my father can't touch. And there's a lawyer, Rebecca Chen, no relation to Isabella, who has a full file on my father's organization. Everything. Financial records, criminal activities, names of corrupt officials. If I don't come back, she goes to the FBI. Ji-won, let me finish. His grip tightened. I know you don't want my money. I know you built your own empire. But this isn't about you. It's about them. About making sure that if my world comes crashing down, they're protected. Why are you talking like you're going to die? Because I might. He said it simply. Honestly. My father sees me as either his greatest success or his biggest failure. There's no middle ground with him. And I've just committed the ultimate betrayal in his eyes. I've put something above the organization. Then don't go. Her voice was desperate now. Just don't go. We'll leave. Right now. I'll take the boys back to Nigeria and you can... He'll follow. You know he will. The only way to end this is to face him. And if he kills you, then at least I died trying to protect them. That has to count for something. Amara's tears finally fell. It counts for everything and nothing. They won't understand grand gestures. They'll just know their father died before they really knew him. Then tell them. Jiwon's voice broke. Tell them I loved them. That I didn't know they existed until yesterday. But the moment I saw them, they became the most important thing in my world. That's not fair. She was crying harder now. You don't get to do this. You don't get to make me care about whether you live or die. I know. I'm sorry. He pulled her close, and for a moment, just a moment, she let him hold her. She felt exactly as he remembered. Warm, real, the only solid thing in a world made of shadows. I'm sorry for everything. For walking away. For not being there. For not being brave enough 5 years ago to choose you over duty. Ji-won. He kissed her forehead. Once. Gently. Then let her go. Take care of them. Teach them to be better than I am. Better than my father. Better than this whole corrupt empire. Come back, she whispered. Just come back. He wanted to promise. Wanted to swear he'd walk out of that meeting and back into this house. But he'd promised enough things he couldn't guarantee. Instead, he just nodded and walked out. Marcus was waiting by the car. Boss, Security Team Alpha is ready. We've got a route planned with 3 alternative options depending on... No, Ji-won said. No security team. Boss. He said alone. If I show up with an army, he'll know I'm planning something. I need him to think I'm compliant, obedient. That's suicide. Maybe. Ji-won got into the back of the car. Or maybe it's the only play I have left. Drive. They drove in silence through Malibu, then onto the Pacific Coast Highway heading north. The ocean was gray today, clouds hanging low and heavy. Appropriate weather for a funeral, Ji-won thought darkly. His father's compound was in the hills above Santa Barbara. 300 acres of vineyard-covered property that looked like a Tuscan villa, but functioned as the nerve center of the Kang family's entire operation. Ji-won had grown up there, had been trained there, had learned every lesson about power and violence in those stone buildings. Now he was driving back, possibly for the last time. The guards at the gate checked him through. More guards lined the driveway. By the time they reached the main house, Ji-won counted at least 40 armed men, all loyal to his father, all ready to kill on command. The front door opened before he could knock. His uncle, Kang Min-seok, stood there. Nephew, your father is waiting in the wine cellar. The wine cellar. Where business was discussed. Where problems were solved. Where people who betrayed the family were taken to be taught lessons. Ji-won followed his uncle down stone stairs that felt like descending into a tomb. The temperature dropped with each step. By the time they reached the bottom, his breath was visible. Kang Dae-hyun sat at a long table, a glass of wine in his hand. He was 62, but looked 50, maintaining his power through careful discipline. His hair was silver, his suit impeccable. He looked like a CEO, a philanthropist, not a crime lord who'd destroyed countless lives. Son. His father gestured to a chair. Sit. Ji-won sat. Wine? This is from our vineyard. 2015. Excellent year. I'm fine. Suit yourself. Kang Dae-hyun sipped his wine, studying Jiwon like a scientist examining a specimen. You've created quite a problem. I protected 3 children and their mother. You defied me. You ignored my summons. You disappeared with a woman who represents everything I warned you against. His father set down his glass with careful precision. Do you know what that looks like to the organization? I don't care what it looks like. You should. Kang Dae-hyun stood, walking slowly around the table. Power is about perception. If people perceive weakness, it becomes reality. If the heir to our empire can be controlled by a woman and some bastard children, don't. Jiwon's voice was steel. Don't call them that. Why not? It's what they are. Accidents, mistakes, complications that need to be resolved. They're your grandsons. Are they? His father leaned against the table. Or are they leverage? Think about it, Jiwon. The woman is wealthy now, successful, but everyone has pressure points. Everyone can be controlled. Your children, if they are yours and will need DNA tests to confirm, they could be useful. Very useful indeed. Ice flooded Jiwon's veins. You want to use them. I want to turn a liability into an asset. That's what good leaders do. Kang Dae-hyun poured himself more wine. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to convince Ms. Okafor to sign custody over to you. Temporary, of course. Just enough to establish legal rights. Then the children will stay with us, under our protection. And she can visit whenever she likes, as long as she remains cooperative. You want to take them hostage. I want to secure our family's future. Don't be dramatic. Jiwon stood slowly. No. Excuse me? I said no. You're not touching them. You're not going near them. And if you try, I'll burn this entire empire to the ground. His father laughed. Actually laughed. With what? You have no power here. No allies I don't control. You're my son, Jiwon, but you're also just a man. And men break. Then break me. Jiwon walked toward the stairs. But you'll never get near those boys. Stop. Jiwon kept walking. Stop, or I'll have your woman picked up within the hour. Those children will be in my compound before sunset. Is that what you want? Jiwon stopped, turned. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? I've done worse things for less reason. Kang Dae-hyun's smile was cold. Sit down, son. Let's discuss this rationally. Jiwon sat. Not because he was obedient, but because he was calculating, planning, buying time. His father had made a mistake. He'd revealed his hand. Revealed what he wanted and how far he'd go to get it. And Jiwon finally understood what he had to do. You want the children, Jiwon said slowly. You want control of my relationship with them. You want leverage. I want security for our family. Then let's make a deal. His father's eyes narrowed. I'm listening. I take over the organization. Now, today, you step down. Retire to that villa in Italy you've always talked about. Live out your days in luxury. And in exchange, the children remain off limits. Forever. They grow up normal. Safe. Outside this world. You're not ready to lead. I've been ready since I was 25, and you know it. You've just been too afraid to let go. Jiwon leaned forward. But here's what you're missing, father. The world is changing. Our old methods don't work anymore. We need legitimacy. Legal fronts. Clean money. I can give you that. I can transform this organization into something that lasts generations. But only if I do it my way. Kang Dae-hyun was quiet for a long moment. And the woman? She goes back to Nigeria with her sons. Lives her life. We maintain a relationship with the children. Supervised. Limited. But present. They know who we are. But they're protected from what we do. You're asking me to walk away from everything I built. I'm asking you to trust that what you built will survive. Will grow. But only if you let it evolve. His father studied him with those cold, calculating eyes. Then, slowly, he smiled. You've learned well. That was a masterful pitch. Almost had me convinced. Jiwon's blood went cold. But here's the truth, son. Kang Dae-hyun's smile vanished. I'm never stepping down. This empire is mine until I die. And when I die, it'll go to someone who understands that power requires sacrifice. not to someone who'd risk everything for a woman and some bastards. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Bring them in. The door opened, and Ji-won's world ended. Because 3 of his father's men walked into the wine cellar, and they weren't alone. They had Amara. Time stopped. Amara stood between 2 of his father's enforcers, her hands zip-tied in front of her, her face a mask of fury and terror. Her lip was bleeding slightly. She'd fought them, of course she had, and her clothes were torn at the shoulder. But she was alive. What did you do? Ji-won's voice came out strangled. He was on his feet, without remembering standing. His hand instinctively reaching for the gun he'd left in the car, because his father had demanded he come unarmed. I secured my leverage. Kang Dae-hyun's voice was calm, pleasant even, like he was discussing business strategy, not kidnapping. Ms. Okafor was quite difficult to acquire, I must say. Your security team at the Malibu property was competent. 3 of my men are currently dead because of them. Marcus, alive, wounded, but alive. I needed him to deliver a message. His father walked closer to Amara, who tried to back away but was held firm by the enforcers. You're even more beautiful than the photographs suggested. I can see why my son was so taken with you. Touch me again, and I'll kill you. Amara's voice was pure venom. I don't care who you are. Spirited. I like that. Kang Dae-hyun turned back to Ji-won. The children are secured as well. Different location, of course. We're not monsters. They're being treated quite well. Probably think it's an adventure. The world tilted. Father, please. Ah, there it is. The begging. I was wondering when we'd get to that part. His father poured another glass of wine, utterly casual. Here's how this is going to work. You're going to sign custody of those children over to me. Ms. Okafor is going to cooperate completely. No lawsuits, no investigations, no messy custody battles. And in exchange, everyone lives. You're insane. I'm practical. Those boys have Kang blood. That makes them valuable. Their mother has connections in 40 countries. That makes her valuable. And you, my son, are going to learn that family loyalty isn't a suggestion. It's a requirement. Ji-won looked at Amara. Her eyes were blazing with rage, but underneath that, he could see the fear. Not for herself. For her sons. Where are they? Amara's voice cracked. Where are my babies? Safe, for now. Kang Dae-hyun swirled his wine. Whether they stay that way depends entirely on how cooperative you both decide to be. I'll kill you for this. Ji-won's voice was dead calm. The voice he used when making promises he intended to keep. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But I will kill you. Will you? That would require spine. Commitment. The willingness to patricide. His father laughed. You couldn't even leave this woman properly 5 years ago. You had to sneak away like a coward. What makes you think you're capable of real violence now? You're about to find out. The temperature in the room dropped. Even the enforcers shifted uncomfortably. Kang Dae-hyun's smile faded. Threats are meaningless without power. And right now, boy, I have all of it. Do you? Ji-won took a step forward. Because I think you're bluffing. I think you can actually hurt those children. Not without losing respect from every single member of this organization who still has a shred of humanity left. Killing business rivals is one thing. Hurting 5-year-old children? That's another. You're gambling with high stakes. So are you. Ji-won's eyes were cold. You think you've won because you have Amara, because you have the boys somewhere. But you've also just shown your entire hand. You're desperate. You're losing control of the organization and you know it. The younger members want change. The legitimate businesses are making more money than the criminal ones. And you're terrified that when I take over, I'll erase your legacy. His father's jaw clenched. Ji-won had hit something true. So, here's my counter-offer, Ji-won continued, his voice gaining strength. You let them go. All of them. Right now. And I'll stay. I'll be the obedient heir you always wanted. I'll run the organization exactly as you've taught me. No reforms, no legitimacy, pure, ruthless power. Ji-won, no. Amara tried to move toward him, but the enforcers held her back. But, Ji-won spoke over her, If you hurt them, if you lay one hand on those boys or keep them from their mother even one more hour, I burn it all down. I call Rebecca Chen and have her release every file to the FBI. I testify. I name names. I destroy everything you've built, even if it destroys me too. The room was silent. Kang Dae-hyun stared at his son like seeing him for the first time. You'd sacrifice yourself? For them, without hesitation. Even though the woman hates you? Even though you'll never have a relationship with those children? Even then. His father set down his wine glass with a sharp click. You really have become soft. No. Ji-won's voice was steel. I finally figured out what strength actually means. It's not holding power over others. It's knowing what you're willing to lose for what matters. For a long moment, Kang Dae-hyun said nothing. Then he laughed. A genuine, surprised laugh. My God, you actually mean it. Every word. You'd walk away from the empire. From everything I've given you. From billions of dollars and more power than most men dream of. If it keeps them safe. Yes. His father studied him, then shook his head. I raised you wrong. I tried to make you hard, ruthless, perfect. But somewhere along the way, you became something I never intended. What's that? A good man. Kang Dae-hyun said it like a curse. Useless for my purposes, but interesting. He pulled out his phone. Made a call. Bring the children back to the Malibu property. No, unharmed. Yes, immediately. He hung up, looked at Ji-won. The boys will be returned within the hour. Ms. Okafor as well, once we're done here. Ji-won didn't trust it. Just like that? Just like that, because you've made your position clear. And honestly, his father picked up his wine again. I'm tired, 62 years old, and I've spent 40 of them fighting, building, destroying. Maybe it's time to let the next generation make their mistakes. This isn't a mistake. We'll see. Kang Dae-hyun gestured to the enforcers. Release her. They cut Amara's zip ties. She immediately lunged at Ji-won, grabbing his shirt. The boys. You're sure they're okay? They will be. He looked at his father. I want proof of life. Now. Kang Dae-hyun nodded to one of his men, who pulled out a phone and showed them a video. 3 small boys in a nice room, eating snacks, watching TV. Kai looked scared, but unharmed. Kian was talking to someone off camera. Cairo was coloring. Amara's legs gave out. Ji-won caught her, held her up. They're okay. They're okay. If they're hurt, they won't be. Ji-won looked at his father. Our deal stands. I stay. Run things your way. But they're off limits. Forever. Agreed, with one condition. What condition? You do reform the organization. You do modernize it. You do everything you just threatened not to do. Kang Dae-hyun's smile was sad. Because you were right. The world is changing. Our old ways are dying. If this empire is going to survive, it needs someone who understands that. Someone who can be ruthless when necessary, but also knows when to choose a different path. Ji-won stared at his father, confused. I don't understand. I'm stepping down, effective immediately. You're in charge. His father set down his glass with finality. I tested you, son, to see if you'd actually sacrifice everything for those children, for that woman. And you were willing to. That's the kind of strength this organization needs. Not my kind. Yours. This is another manipulation. It's not. For once in my life, I'm being honest. Kang Dae-hyun moved toward the stairs. I'll be in Italy by next week. You'll have full access to everything. Accounts, operations, personnel. The organization is yours. Try not to burn it down in the first year. He paused at the stairs, looked back. And Ji-won? Those boys are lucky. They'll grow up knowing their father isn't a coward. That's more than I ever gave you. Then he was gone, leaving Ji-won and Amara alone in the wine cellar with 2 very confused enforcers. Boss? One of them ventured. What are our orders? Get out, Ji-won said quietly. And spread the word. Anyone who touches that woman or those children answers to me personally. They practically ran up the stairs. Amara was shaking. Ji-won was still holding her up, and now she turned into him, pressing her face against his chest. Not a hug. Just needing something solid to keep her from falling. Is it over? Her voice was muffled. I don't know. Maybe. For now. I need to see them. Right now. I need to see my sons. We'll go. Marcus is probably already bringing them back to the house. She pulled back, looked up at him. Her eyes were red, her makeup smeared, her lips still bleeding. She looked like she'd been through a war. You were going to give up everything. For us. Yes. Why? Because... Jiwon's voice caught. Because 5 years ago I made the wrong choice. I chose duty over love, power over happiness, and it's haunted me every day since. I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. Even if we never forgave you, even if you never got to be their father, even then, some things are more important than what I want. Amara studied his face for a long moment. Then, impossibly, she smiled. Small, sad, but real. You really did become someone different. I had good motivation. He gently touched the cut on her lip. We need to get you checked out. Make sure... I'm fine. I just need my sons. They climbed the stairs together, emerging into afternoon sunlight that felt surreal after the darkness of the wine cellar. Cars were pulling up to the compound, Marcus's SUV in front. The back doors opened. 3 small boys tumbled out, followed by Marie, who looked shaken, but unhurt. The boys saw Amara and ran, a tangle of small bodies and tears and, Mommy! Mommy! We're okay! There were men, but they gave us ice cream. Where were you? We were scared. Amara dropped to her knees, pulling all 3 boys into her arms, sobbing. Just sobbing and holding them, and checking them over for injuries with shaking hands. Jiwon stood back, watching. Not part of it, not yet. But Kai looked up, saw him, and pulled away from his mother to walk over. You're the sad man, Kai said seriously. I am, Jiwon managed, his voice rough. Are you still sad? A little less now. Kai considered this. Then, with the simple generosity of children, he held out his hand. Mommy says holding hands helps when you're sad. Jiwon looked at that small hand, at the birthmark on Kai's wrist, the family mark, the genetic signature, the proof of blood. He took his son's hand. And for the first time in 5 years, Kang Jiwon felt like maybe, possibly, he could become the man he should have been all along. 1 week later, the Malibu house had become something unexpected, a home. Not permanently. Amara had made that clear. They were staying only until she was certain the threat from Jiwon's world was truly neutralized. Then she'd return to Nigeria with the boys, and they'd figure out co-parenting across continents like rational adults. But for now, there were small moments of normalcy. Kion teaching Jiwon how to play Mario Kart. Jiwon was terrible at it. Cairo asking a million questions about the ocean and tide pools and why seagulls were so loud. Kai quietly drawing pictures, one of which he'd given to Jiwon, a stick figure family with 5 people instead of 4. Amara watched these interactions like a hawk, ready to intervene if Jiwon crossed any lines. But slowly, incrementally, she was relaxing, starting to believe that maybe this wasn't another manipulation. Maybe he really had changed. They were sitting on the terrace after the boys were in bed, the ocean dark and vast beyond the glass barrier. My company finalized the LA deal, Amara said quietly. I need to fly to Lagos next week for the board meeting. And the boys? Come with me, obviously. Of course. Jiwon paused. Can I visit? Not now, but eventually? That depends. On what? On whether you can keep your promise. No danger, no violence, no exposing them to your world. She looked at him. I researched what you're doing with the organization, the reforms, going legitimate. It's impressive, but it also makes you enemies. I know. So how do I trust that those enemies won't target my children? Our children, he corrected gently. She didn't argue this time. Progress. Security. Distance. Secrecy. Jiwon counted on his fingers. They live in Nigeria under your name. No one connects them to me publicly. I visit as a family friend until they're old enough to understand the truth. And when they do know, if they do, They get to choose whether they want a relationship with me. That could be years. I've already missed 5. I can wait as long as it takes. Amara was quiet for a moment. Kai asked me today if you were his father. Jiwon's heart stopped. What did you say? I asked him why he thought that. He said you have the same eyes, the same way of tilting your head when you're thinking. She smiled sadly. Smart kid. They're all smart. They get that from you. They get stubbornness from you. Keon argued with me for 20 minutes this morning about whether dinosaurs could swim. He's 5. Where does a 5-year-old learn to debate like that? Genetics? She laughed. Actually laughed. God help me when they're teenagers. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the ocean. Finally, Amara spoke again. I don't forgive you yet. For leaving. For those 5 years. I don't know if I ever will. I don't expect you to. But, she continued, I'm willing to try. For them. They deserve a father. And you're trying to become one. That has to count for something. Thank you. His voice cracked. For giving me this chance. Don't waste it. She stood, started to head inside, then paused. And Jiwon? That thing you said about choosing differently this time? Yes? Prove it, every day. Not with grand gestures, with small ones, with showing up, with being present even when it's hard. She looked back at him. That's what fatherhood actually is. I'm learning. Good. Because they're watching. And children have a way of seeing through every lie we tell ourselves. She went inside, leaving him alone with the ocean and the stars, and the strange, terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, he could build something better from the ruins of what he'd destroyed. Inside the house, Kai stood at his bedroom window, watching Jiwon on the terrace. Keon? He whispered to his brother in the top bunk. Yeah? I think the sad man is our daddy. I think so too. Do you think he'll stay this time? Keon was quiet for a moment. I don't know. But Mommy says we should judge people by what they do, not what they promise. What's he doing? Trying. I think he's trying. Is that enough? Maybe. We'll see. The brothers fell asleep, and in the house by the sea, 5 people who hadn't been a family a week ago continued the slow, painful, beautiful work of becoming one. End of episode 1. But in a compound in Santa Barbara, Kang Dae-hyun sat in his empty study, staring at a photograph of a young Jiwon, maybe 12 years old, already serious beyond his years. He picked up his phone, made a call. It's me, he said quietly. Yes, I stepped down. No, he doesn't suspect. Begin phase 2. And remember, my son cannot know I'm still involved. Let him believe he's won. Let him think he's free. Yes, sir. And the woman? Leverage. Always leverage. She loves those children more than anything. That's a weakness we'll exploit when the time comes. And if Jiwon interferes? Kang Dae-hyun's smile was cold. Then I'll teach him what happens when you put love above family loyalty. One way or another, my son will learn. They always do. He hung up, poured himself wine, and toasted the photograph. You think you've escaped, boy. You think you've chosen a different path. But you're still my son, and my legacy will be yours, whether you want it or not. The photograph stared back, silent and damning. And in Malibu, Jiwon's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Your father didn't retire. He's planning something. The children are still in danger. Trust no one. A friend. Jiwon stared at the message as ice flooded his veins. It wasn't over. It had never been over. And somewhere in the house, 3 small boys slept peacefully, unaware that the war for their future had only just begun. To be continued in episode 2. Jiwon acredita ter vencido e conquistado a liberdade, mas descobre através de mensagem anônima que seu pai nunca se aposentou de verdade. Está planejando algo nas sombras. As crianças ainda estão em perigo, e agora Jiwon não sabe em quem confiar. A guerra está apenas começando.